Welcome to Purpose Pivots, conversations about aligned change. I'm Irina Young, a certified purpose coach, and I cannot wait to welcome Diana Fox to today's conversation. Diana built her career in tech, helping scale startups and eventually leading her own Web3 gaming company. After years in high growth environments, she made a conscious pivot into the plant medicine space about a year and a half ago. She guides entrepreneurs and high achievers through preparation and integration for plant medicine experiences and hosts retreats with highly skilled maestros and medicine practitioners. This is the work that makes her feel most alive, creating spaces where people can meet themselves deeply and transform from the inside out. Diana, thank you so much for being here.
It's so good to be here, Irina. Thanks for having me.
So, I would love to know before we get into what you're doing now, how'd you get into tech and startups?
Oh my gosh. I think I was always meant to work in tech and startups because when I was in high school, one of my neighbors came over and she made my AOL background look cool. So this is, the late 90s, early 2000s, and I was obsessed. I was like, how did you make it white background and black text and black background and yellow text? And from that, I taught myself how to code and spent all of my time just building really cool things online that nobody saw, but I thought was cool. And so it was really natural for me to work in the tech world because it was where I was genuinely spending my time. I was genuinely curious, really interested. And so after undergrad, I got recruited to mostly work in partnership roles and sales roles. People thought that I had an outgoing personality and that I would be able to talk to people. And that's kind of how I fell into the tech world and where I mostly spent my time for about 15, if not more years.
Wow. And you seem pretty chipper, sort of talking about that era. Can you tell us a little bit more about what life was like in maybe the last few years of it?
Yeah, so the thing with tech is that everything is ever changing, and what works today is not going to work tomorrow. And it was really exciting to be part of companies that were trying to solve really interesting problems and were constantly evolving. One of my longest jobs was doing partnerships in biz dev for a startup that ended up going public and IPOing. And my clients were all media companies, so the CNNs, the Condé Nast, the Hearst, really, really exciting people, clients to have. And, they would try something one year and then the rest of them would all do that thing like infinite scroll. And then the next year it was something completely different. When I started working in this world, most media companies didn't even have a mobile presence for their websites. They were just
Right.
desktop. And now, obviously, nobody builds just for desktop. It would be unimaginable. So
Yeah.
you really get to change and grow with people over time. So those are kind of the highlights. And I was really fortunate that I could take a front seat at a startup
Mm,
that had a really good product market fit, was growing. It was really, really exciting, and I loved being a part of it. Right, where I would close a deal and it would get written about in the Wall Street Journal. It was really exciting, and for
yeah.
somebody in their 20s and early 30s, there was really no better place to be. In the heart of New York City, I was living a very big, very exciting life. Um, Over time, it does get a little challenging because you're always having to stay on top of things and there's no real rest. And I was so grateful for the opportunity early on in my career. But as the years went on, it wears you down and it's really hard to just find that energy on a day-to-day basis. And
Mm,
so it really, really tested my yeah, my interest, myself, and at a certain point, it was no longer the same feeling that I had in my 20s, my early 30s, where I was just so exuberant. I would wake up in the morning and be like, oh my God, what emails did I get? And what happened?
hmm.
So that was kind of how it went for me.
Okay, so it just sounds like kind of the season changed and it was you were ready for something new. It wasn't like this big like I can't do this anymore wake up moment. It
Correct.
kind of slowly you kind of slowly came to that conclusion.
Yeah, I always think about there's a book called The Second Mountain. It basically talks about how when you first graduate undergrad and you go out into the world, you scale the mountain that you think you're meant to scale, and
Mm,
everybody tells you, which is you get the job, you get the relationship, you buy the house, you do the thing. And for a lot of people, once they scale that mountain, they realize, is this actually what makes me happy? Because I'm finding myself having a little bit of a hole inside that I didn't expect to
mm,
have, because these are the things that are meant to make me happy. And
right.
I got to that point, I would say probably in my early 30s, where there was no, there was arguably no better place to work. There was no better place to live. I had an awesome relationship at that time. So I was kind of at that place, but I didn't really feel that fulfillment. And
Hmm.
so in the book, he talks about at that point, most people go down the mountain and they figure out what is that next mountain for them, that deeper meaning, the one that's gonna have a deeper level of fulfillment. And maybe it doesn't have the things that the first mountain had. Maybe the
Hmm.
salary's lower, maybe it's not in the same location that you thought, but um you find something that is a little bit more soulful for you.
Hmm.
So,
Hmm.
yeah, it was a result of being very successful and then realizing like, okay, is this it?
Oh, everyone who's going to listen to this can probably resonate to that. At some point, certainly a lot of the clients that I work with, that's sort of the point that they're at. It's like, but everything looks so good on paper. And this worked so well for me at some point. And for some amount of time, I'm not quite sure what changed. So I love this notion of the second mountain. It's a really helpful visual, even, right? To sort of understand. I feel like that first mountain is usually not ours to climb, but we climb it anyway, right? It's kind of like the external, the
Yes.
forces at play there. And then the second one seems like it's more of an internal push and drive, which of course is going to fill you up a little, a little bit more and feel more
Yeah.
fulfilling. So then you have this realization, and how, I guess, take me from like tech and startups, including your own, to plant medicine retreats. Like, how did you start exploring new possibilities? Tell us a little bit about the transition for you, because that's quite a jump.
Yeah, so this jump took me 8 years. So it was a very slow, very, very slow jump. It's kind of what entrepreneurs say is that it seems like they were successful out of nowhere, but nobody
Uh-huh.
sees the day-to-day build up to that.
Right.
So for me, I started working with various plant medicines in 2018. It was something that I got exposed to. I had a lot of questions about
Mhm.
myself, and I was kind of at that point where I had already had early on success. I already was where I thought I was going to be. And I was starting to ask questions about like, where am I going? What is the rest of my life look like? And so I was introduced to plant medicines around that
Mhm.
time, and I started working with them on pretty much an annual basis. So pretty much every year I would go to Peru, do a couple of ayahuasca ceremonies, and then I would work with practitioners in between to help ground the experience, to help integrate them. Because one of the things is that, the ayahuasca and plant medicines, they're very heightened states, but
Right.
they open a lot of doors, but you need time to really integrate and put things into practice. And so over that time, I left New York City. I moved to Miami, and that ended up being amazing because Miami is, and I live in Miami Beach, and there's water and palm trees and beach, and there's a lot more nature. And at that point, that was something that was really, I was looking for and was really resonating with me. And so over the course of that time, I built my own startup. It was in the gaming business, and we did really well. We launched a number of really amazing games that I'm so deeply proud of. Roblox game, and mobile games, and it was a wonderful experience. I was very fortunate. I had two amazing business partners. We're still really good friends. And at a certain point, over the course of me working with these plant medicines, I realized that I had something deeper to offer into the world, and I started bringing different friends to plant medicines. I started prepping people, and I realized that that is really where my heart and my soul was.
Mm,
And I, instead of skipping out of bed, looking at my emails, thinking about, oh, what's that next biz dev deal? Did they reply to me? I noticed my body felt really heavy around anything to do in the tech world. And I felt really energetic when it came
mhm.
to helping people figure out where to go for their next ceremony, where to go to a retreat, and having those conversations. There was really no time in the day when I would say no to that kind of conversation because it
Yeah.
was so exciting for me. And I was just really happy to have those conversations. So it was kind of taking notice of, wait, why do I feel energized here?
Hmm.
Okay, this is where I'm landing. Okay. And ultimately, it took me 8 years to really be brave enough to go out and tell people, like, okay, this is what I want to do on
Hmm.
a professional level. But it first started with me noticing how excited I was and how good I felt about it.
I mean, that was like a master class, literally, in finding your purpose and following it. It really is about the small actions, noticing what's exciting for you,
Yeah,
perhaps following through on what that is. And you said you started by like taking your friends, right? And I
yeah,
love that it took you 8 years because people are often like, oh my God, I have to take this big leap overnight and become a different person. And that's, it doesn't have to be that way. And to your point, it usually is not. So it's
yeah,
very relatable that it takes time. And yeah, noticing sort of where your energy expands versus contracts is such a big clue for the direction you might want to start heading. And then as you take each step, it kind of, you take a step and then it's like, okay, now what? You take a step from there. Now what? It's not about seeing 20 steps ahead, right? It's
yeah,
just like, what is that next step? So as you're doing this, maybe we're talking about you're in year 7 or something like that.
yeah.
What starts showing up for you? Is there certainty? Are there inner doubts, fears, resistance that you had to face? What did your family think? Did they know?
I really just decided that I was ready and
Mhm.
I kind of went for it. And so my first step was really to, because I had already been prepping people, I had
Mhm.
written a guide, I just translated it into a little course and I started talking about it on social media. And at that time, my entire social media following was just friends and family and people I met along the way.
Right.
So it wasn't this, huge built up platform. And I just started talking about, hey, I have this course. This is something that I'm doing. And pretty quickly, the feedback that I got from people was, this is so cool. When are you going to host a retreat? This is so cool. When are you going to host a retreat? So
Wow.
if you're in the tech world, my first product pretty much failed. My first attempt, there was no product market fit. And that's kind of how I view it. You're testing
Okay.
different
Yeah.
products out and you
Totally.
take all of the wisdom that you built from your first career, the first thing that you were doing, and you bring that into the next thing that you're doing. And so I was like, okay, this thing didn't really resonate, but it seems like people are asking me for something else. So I'm going to start
Mhm.
providing what they're asking for because why not? I've been to a number of retreats. I know how they're going to go. I know what the framework is. Yeah, this sounds really good. So, yeah, that's kind of how I approached it. I'm somebody who doesn't really ask for a lot of opinions before I start doing something. I find that people project their own versions of reality, their own fears, concerns, doubts. And
Yep.
so most people it doesn't really matter and your friends family they want you to be safe and so anytime you go something do something outside of their perceived version of safety you're triggering responses in them and so the
Totally.
best thing to do is just do follow your own heart what feels right and eventually you will attract the right people clients whatever and your family and friends will get on board with it over time now, do they think I'm silly and funny? Of course. But does that
Yeah.
matter? No, because they're probably not my clients or not my audience. So,
Yeah.
yeah, my path has really been following what I what in my heart I feel is
Yeah.
right, and also having a partner who's very supportive of it and is like, "Yeah, go for it. Yes, do it." So
Yay.
yeah, just having that one person in your corner, and then just kind of ignoring everybody else because people are going to have a lot of opinions, and
Yeah.
most of the time they're not really relevant.
Yeah. I mean, they're not, and you make it sound so easy. This is a really big challenge for
Yeah,
a lot of people. I didn't tell my parents for months after I
yeah,
left Google. And when I did, they obviously thought I had lost my mind,
Of
right? Like,
course.
how can you
Yeah.
how can you do that? To your point, kind of as time passes and they see where you're going with it, it makes a little more sense. And I think part of that is just it becomes more familiar
Yeah.
to the safety piece, right? So, yeah, I love that you have this wisdom around just follow your heart. It's so crazy. We're so taught to like go outside of us. Like, what do the mentors think? What do the experts think? What does the framework say? It's like, you are the framework, you
Yeah.
are the expert, the only
Yeah.
one who can live your life.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
And
it. They can't. It's not
right.
theirs.
The
Yeah.
more you can tap into your own insight, your own heart, your own wisdom,
Yeah.
the easier it becomes. And that's actually something that I see the most challenging for people who come to my retreats is that it is hard for them to hear their own wisdom.
Hmm.
And,
Hmm.
they do a lot of external asking, but
Yep.
the work of working with plant medicines is oftentimes getting connected to your internal self so that you can hear your own wisdom, thoughts, opinions, and
Yep.
other people's don't really
Right.
matter that much because,
Yeah.
and this is advice that I give to people when I have girlfriends that come and ask me, they're like, hey, what do you think of this situation? What do you think of that situation? I always try to help them work out what they think instead of projecting what
Mm.
I think for
Mhm.
them,
Yep. Yep.
kind of help them connect to their own heart of like, okay, well, imagine yourself in this situation. How does it
Right.
feel? Feels bad? Don't do that. Imagine yourself in this situation. So kind of working through with them so that they can hear themselves. But yeah, and it takes a little
Totally.
training.
Was there sort of like one moment or experience where you realized like this is working? Like this is the path for me?
Yeah, I realized it was working after the first retreat that I hosted.
Wow.
It was with a shaman maestro that I've been working with for 8 years. I mean,
Mm.
he's somebody that I really knew and trusted. And so I felt really comfortable bringing him in and building a retreat around him because I knew exactly what people were getting. But,
Yeah.
I found the location, I brought all the people together. I basically produced the event and then let him do the work of serving the medicine, holding the
Mhm.
energetic container, and leading and guiding people. But I left that weekend with such a deep level of fulfillment because
Mm.
it's really amazing how much people can work out in the course of the 3 ayahuasca nights. It's
Right.
really special. And obviously, you're not working out everything, but
Hmm.
there is a big transformation. And I felt so happy and so good to have realized that, oh my gosh, I created the space for people to be able to go in and face aspects of themselves, clear energies. And a lot of them walked out with big realizations, big revelations, and deeper understandings of themselves. So I remember I actually drove home from that retreat blasting a DJ called Pausa, just
Hmm.
playing like loud house music, which is funny because I don't listen to house music on a day-to-day basis ever. And it's not something I do, but I just felt so like amped up from
Yep.
being able to provide this really, really cool experience for people. So that's when
Oh,
I kind of
I
knew,
love that.
oh, it's clicking.
Yeah, and it was that sort of immediate feedback, right? Because you're saying it was after the first session. I think it's also helpful for people because so much of this is to sort of show people what the process is like and what happens and maybe what the signs are. So
Yeah.
you feeling energized after playing house music. A lot of times we might in anticipation of something new that we're doing, even if it's a micro step, we might be nervous and we're like, oh, maybe this is a sign it's not the right thing. But how do you feel after?
Yeah,
That's a really good cue.
exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So you've been doing this now for like a year and a half, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And tell us what your life, your energy, your work, what does it look like now?
I feel extremely excited. It's really easy for me to talk to people about it. It's the thing that I want to talk to everybody
Hmm.
about. And the new thing for me is, filling retreat spots. It is also a little bit of a sales job too. I'm kind of figuring out where the line is of inviting people, letting them know
Hmm.
they're invited, they're included, I would love to have them. And,
Right.
overly salesy because coming from a sales background, partnerships and business development, that is
Right.
kind of that's who I be. I follow up with people. I do the
Yeah.
thing. I go to conferences, I go to events, but this is such a
Right.
personal thing that
Yeah.
now I'm learning like, okay, how do I share and let people know that they're invited, but make
Mhm.
it feel really authentic? So that's something that I'm kind of adjusting to. The other thing on a day-to-day basis is I'm actually taking a training course with an organization called ICEERS on how
Okay.
to do psychedelic integration because
Mm.
what I've realized is that I love the retreat setting and
Mhm.
there's so much to do in this space outside
Mm.
of that setting. So how do I support people more after they go and have these very large experiences? And how do I support people before they go as well? How do I
Right.
get them comfortable? So I'm thinking a lot about how can I really support people in this
Mhm.
entire process and not just the weekend of. And obviously the weekend of is really that is the part, that is the
Yeah.
big thing. I kind of view it as that's a starting point for you. That's when you go in and you see, okay, this is what's here. This is what's kind of
Mhm.
under the hood of, if you will. And then how do you take that material that you found that's under the hood and how do you then implement it on a day-to-day basis? And
Right.
sometimes it's how do I deal with my anxiety after
Mhm.
this experience? Because now I realize how much anxiety I have. Or how do I change my relationship with my parents because I realize that there's some patterns with them that I would like to change. So things like that that
Mhm.
really stem from these big experiences, but ultimately need to be integrated into the day to day to have the full impact.
I love that it's end to end because I would imagine somebody going through that experience to have someone they're already familiar with and trust who saw them
Yeah.
in the experience can really support integration in a way that someone who wasn't there can't.
Yeah.
So that's really cool. And it makes me think a little bit around just generally like investing in ourselves for our growth and how that supports others too.
Yeah.
So I love that you're taking the training and continuing to grow. And it's always a reminder that sort of no matter where you're at, is there something that you're kind of curious about that you can put an investment toward yourself to learn, to do the experience, to get some of that? And I was going to ask you about transferable skills from the old world to the current one. So we know sales is one of them, and working with people. Is there anything else that comes to mind? Because a lot of times people are like, oh my God, it'd be such a big change. It's a totally different world. And when you really think about it, a lot of like the essence of who you are shines through no matter what you're doing. So I'd
Yeah.
love to explicitly name it as well. So if you can share anything else that comes to mind, that can be really helpful.
Project management,
Mm,
marketing. So, first and foremost, running retreats is project management, right?
yeah.
It's
Okay.
communicating with people, getting people to come on time,
Hmm.
knowing how much food, knowing that things are going to go wrong, allotting for the things that are potentially going to go wrong. Something that always goes wrong at my retreats, or I shouldn't say goes wrong, but it's curious, is that I can never get the right amount of bread. Every time at every retreat, so I am constantly going in
Mm,
and knowing like, okay, my backup plan, and my backup plan is I can always order more. And
right.
I get food delivered, but it's really that taking the same skill set of that you have a rough outline of a project and what
Yeah.
deliverables are and the timelines and knowing that
Right.
they're not going to go correct. There's going to be something that, is going to go off the rails a little bit and you have
Yep.
to be flexible to make it work. So that's kind of been one of those things. And then
Hmm.
marketing is how do you let people know that you even exist? What you're doing could be valuable to them. And so
Yep.
putting together an email list, writing emails, writing content, summarizing. So everything that a marketing department would do is something that I do. I create collateral, all of it, soup to nuts. You are a little CEO of your own thing. So all the
Yeah.
skills that I had from running a tech startup really
Hmm.
apply here.
Yeah.
It's also how I organize my email list, right? Even though this is a very kind of like woo-woo spiritual thing, it needs to have real tangible backbones in order to succeed because it is Yeah, it's a business.
Totally. The masculine
So
and the feminine, I always say. Like you
yeah,
need both. If you're too like woo woo up in the clouds, that's not, you need to be grounded too. And so you definitely need both. And you
yeah,
have both, girl. Like you're the right
yeah.
person to be doing this. So
Yeah, I like to run a tight ship, you know. I like to over communicate with participants. Hey, this is what's happening. Hey, here's any open question. I actually built a portal for people when they sign up to retreats that has pretty much everything that they need to know.
mhm.
And I this is very specific. I love Notion. I have brought Notion into every startup I've ever worked on. It's
Wow.
such a great
Hmm.
project management tool. And so I was like, Notion. So I built a portal for participants coming to retreats, and it has
Hmm.
all the questions that you could potentially have. Everything is kind of
Yep.
upfront so that you have all the information. So
Yep.
it is mostly transferable things, funny
Yeah.
enough.
It really is. I remember the first time I did a corporate workshop for human design, which is like pretty much as woo woo as it gets. It's like a self knowledge system built on astrology and Kabbalah and the I Ching and NASA data. Like, I don't, it's all these
Yeah.
things. And also, it like transforms people's lives when they learn what theirs is. So I did one for a real corporation, like a Fortune 100 company. And I'm like, oh my goodness, the number of times I have done a presentation to leadership with slides, some virtual, some in person, is just, I couldn't even tell you, right? Like at Google, all you do is give presentations, but
Yeah.
I'm finally presenting on something that I'm excited about. And it was
Yeah.
so beautiful to be standing there with all the familiar tech and the language and all of this. And, but it's something that I care about. So it feels similar to what you're describing of like, I have the hard skills. I'm using Notion and I'm building portals, but
Yes.
I'm doing it for something that means something to me.
Yeah.
There's no better
Exactly.
feeling. There's no better
Exactly.
feeling. Yeah.
Exactly. And you know, I was told when I first started pivoting into this world by friends who have had similar experiences. They were like,
Mm.
keep your tech background experience. It's going to be much more relevant than you think it is. And
Oh
I
yeah.
have definitely found that to be true. And I'm like, okay,
Yes.
Gary, it's been really, really useful because I'm not starting from zero. I'm starting
Yep.
from the 15 plus years I already have and building on top of it.
Right. And I love as you talk about all this, you're so lit up and like I
Yeah.
feel the energy sort of moving through you, which is really beautiful. Are there
Yeah.
any surprises, it could be good or bad, of this new life that you're living that have shown up for you?
Um, you know, it's interesting. So when I was in partnerships and business development, I'm dealing with people, right? So every organization, so huge organization, but really you're dealing with the person that's sitting
Yep.
across the table from you. And people come in and they bring their own fears, anxieties, all sorts of
Yep.
things. And you have to navigate that. You have to navigate if your client is worried that they're going to get fired if they do a bad deal, right?
Right.
So
Right.
those are real tangible things, and I don't think that I expected how much of that I would be dealing,
Mm.
which now in hindsight I'm like it's pretty obvious. But people show up into these spaces and
Hmm.
some people have a lot of resistance and they
Hmm.
tend to project things out. Um, yeah, so that's been kind of surprising to me and something that I've just adjusted to that I
Yep.
understand when you are dealing with working with your
Hmm.
subconscious has resistance and that
Yep.
resistance comes out in curious ways. So
Right.
I've had to learn that okay, maybe they're upset that we ran out of bread, but it's not actually about the bread and it's about something else. Yeah, it
Yep.
is funny, but it does come down to things like that.
Totally.
And I will do whatever I can to manage and to
To
then
acquire the bread.
to acquire the bread. I'm like, I'm ordering it, I promise. So much sourdough bread.
Yeah, humans, right? We're
Humans.
my daughter right now is on a we must get rabbits
Oh,
thing, like obsessive. And we got a dog a year ago, and that was, it took years, and I was like, we're not getting any more pets. And it's just at this point, I'm like, it's not about the rabbits. Like this came out of nowhere. What are we really talking about here, right? And so yeah, when you go deeper, you're like, yeah, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I always think adults are just children with layers on. Yeah. As we start wrapping up, I can't help but come back to what you started with, which was like living the ultimate sign of success in the city and the job and all of this. So, how has your definition or has your definition of success changed? And if so, in what ways?
Yeah. Yeah. That's such a good question. I think my definition of success was based on financial results. And that was really 90% of it. I think was a pretty prevalent definition in New York. And now it's more around impact. How much impact am I making? When I look back at my career in tech, it was wonderful, but I can't see the impact that I made on people. And now I get messages from people after retreats where they tell me I I feel in love with myself for the first time. I'm in my body for the first time. I'm connected to the younger part that I've abandoned when I moved to the US at the age of
Mm,
17. There's a lot more of these real, tangible, hey, this is, I feel differently in the world. I feel differently in my body. I feel differently in my
mhm.
relationships. And those messages mean the world to me. Listen, the
Yeah.
monetary, it's still important,
Yeah.
but I would say that it's really impact based. And that's what I was going for. I was ready to be of service to other
Yeah.
people.
That's what it's all about. It
Yeah.
is. It's just more rewarding. I resonate with that as someone who also left the
Yeah.
corporate world and coaches now. It's a night and day situation for sure. That is a good maybe pivot to my last question, which is if there was anything you wanted people to know about starting over, is there anything that you would advise?
Yeah, I think you don't have to rip the Band-Aid off overnight. It can be something that takes a while to do. You could stay in your current role, career until you've made enough movement progress to then take it full on. And that's kind of how I did it. It wasn't an overnight thing. It was something that was really pulling on me for years and I was working towards for years. So
Mhm.
it doesn't have to be an overnight thing. You don't have to put so much pressure on yourself to have it figured out. I think what really worked for me was just following curiosity. I sat with the plant medicine once and I was like, wow, this is really curious. And I read as much as I could about it. I listened to every podcast. So I really just followed where my natural curiosity led, and then
Mhm.
it led long term to this ultimate pivot. But it wasn't because I put pressure on myself to figure it out overnight.
Yeah.
I think giving yourself time and space because it is a big shift and it does come with financial sacrifices. And so you want to be in a position where you are ready for that, you're aware
Mhm.
of that, and you're going to be okay with doing it.
Yeah, the financial thing I feel like is important because there can be sacrifice. There doesn't have to be, or there can be for a certain amount of time, and
Right.
then that changes again. So I do want to call that out. You talked a lot about impact and the, I mean, money is energy, just like everything else, and ultimately everything's an energetic exchange.
Right.
And the more impact you have, the more it's like reciprocity in a way that with time, the money should, as a natural
Yeah.
consequence, start flowing in as well. And it's different when it's not like, that's what I'm chasing, right? Where
Correct.
it's just like, of course that comes in. Yeah. So I just think it's important because money is, of course, like we are humans having a physical
Of
experience
course.
and we need money in the world that we live in. So
Yeah.
of course that's a big part of it. So I think it's important to talk about as well. So Diana, oh my gosh, thank you so much for this conversation. Also, plant medicine is just such an interesting topic that really is having ripple effects with every single person that you support, how that carries through into their lives and everyone that they interact with. It's like
Yeah.
this huge web. So I'm sure people would love to know how to learn more about your work and how to connect with you. Can you share how people can do that?
Yeah, the best place is on my Instagram, and that is at the Diana Fox. Or they can find me on my website, which is dfventures.io, which is remnants of my tech days. I love that. I love that the URL is like, this is it. This is who I be. I come from the tech world. A lot of people
Yeah,
that come to my retreats, they are in the tech world. So it's familiar territory.
get it. I love that. And I'll share those links in the description as well if you want to just get that
Yeah.
directly. Thank you so much for being here, for what you're doing, and
Yeah.
catch you next time.
Thanks for having me.